So, very warm welcome to everyone, and thank you very much for joining this talk. And the topic that we have today is calming a restless mind. And we have with us Sarah Cavanagh, who is a primary school teacher, and she lives in UK in a place called Newcastle upon Tyne. And she has been practicing Raj Yoga meditation since the mid 1990s. And actually she, of course, coordinates the activities of the Brahma Kumaris in Newcastle. In UK, there are many, many centers of the Brahma Kumaris, and so she coordinates the activities there. And I got to know Sarah, I think it was in the late 90s, maybe, or maybe before that, when she would often come up to Edinburgh, where I lived, to participate in the Edinburgh Festival. And other than that, we had many, many beautiful projects and tasks together. And so it was always very, very inspiring to be in Sarah's company, because I always found her so buoyant, I think is one of the best ways that I can describe Sarah, and full of life and joy and depth all at the same time. And so today the topic calming a restless mind, I think, is something that she can very beautifully share with us some ideas on what goes on and how we can take care of our mind in such a way that we go from being restless to being rested and ready, to be able to face anything that comes up. So please, Sarah, over to you.
Well, thank you for that, Radha. That was a really nice introduction, and I feel I have a lot to live up to now. So let's see how it goes. But yes, very happy days being in Edinburgh with Radha, and as she mentioned, being in the UK and connected to the UK Brahma Kumaris, a sort of spiritual family, if you like, and maybe something you feel for yourselves in the groups that you have. There is something about belonging to a group where the ideas are similar, where you have this sort of like-minded approach to life, and it's really, really important. And I think probably something I'd say about the current situation, and an insight maybe that I'd have for myself, is that the virus, the situation of all of this has been, about everyone being separate physically, but something like this, or having others around us that we already know who take an approach to life which is similar, is very much about unifying. So even though the physical world situations, it doesn't actually, at the moment it's the coronavirus, but it could be something at work, it could be something in my family. The idea that my environment separates me from something, a feeling, an idea, just separating me from people I love or care about. But actually, hopefully today we might reflect more on what unifies, what brings me back to that. And certainly on a physical level, being able to share with everyone and be with everyone that I know shares my ideas. I don't mean particularly this group, but for all of us, when we're with others who share our ideas, it really doesn't matter how physically far away we are. So that's really, really lovely. And yes, absolutely, today's topic about having a restless mind is really relevant at the moment. And I was thinking about this word restless, and I had a whole list of other words that mean the same. Chaotic, using up too much energy, instability, unaligned. So, aligned and unaligned, not quite getting there, unstable, draining, hyped up, uncontrollable. You know, I had all these different thoughts. And then I was thinking, yeah, you know, they're words, and when we use a word or whatever, actually what it is about language, really doesn't really matter what language, is that it translates as feelings. So our language really is about our experiences and our feelings. And so if we're having language and moving through our heads and thoughts moving through our heads, then actually they affect my feelings and they affect my actions. And we don't like that, you know. So is there a way to control or steer? I like that word better, steer, in a way that allows me to become very restless. So a lot of ancient traditions describe the mind like this, you know, restless, like a wild horse or a wild monkey or some wild thing. So today, absolutely, like Radha, I'm coming at the world from a meditation perspective, from a more spiritual perspective, or a perspective of well-being. So that's really where I thought we would come at this today, quite rightly, I think. And I think for myself as a spiritual practitioner or a meditator who might approach a topic like this or a concept like this, you know, moving my mind from restless to restful or chaos to order, I like to break down, and I like to play with words, and I like to play with experiences. And maybe that is the educator in me. And at the minute, again, as Radha said, I'm working with primary. So I get to be with the little people and we play a lot. And I think that's really important. And I know that I have phases when I work more with adults than children. It depends on which level I'm teaching at. And I do a lot of work with adults, sometimes in the well-being field, sometimes in the formal education field. And actually we just lose the fun, you know, in it. And I know that I've sometimes in the summer holidays, these really long summer holidays, after 6 weeks, I'm not necessarily dying to get back to work, but I recognize I sometimes lose the fun that these little people can bring, you know, the spontaneity and the lightness. So I do like to approach a lot of things that I do internally, a lot of concepts I explore internally with a bit of fun. And I like to break things down, and I think that's because it makes challenging ideas and approaches just more varied. So in Raj Yoga, for example, which is the practice underpinning the ideas I'm going to share today, you know, we talk about churning. So churning is this idea that sometimes it's a sort of word you might use in the olden days when you got your big vat of milk, for example, and you would churn the milk and it would create butter or cheese. So you go from something very liquid and very thin in a sense to something very solid and very malleable and very workable. So this idea of churning ideas so that they're not just fluid and thin and whatever, but I actually make it real and experiential for myself. So with that in mind, I invite you to jot down ideas, you know, write things down, and if nothing else today, maybe choose 1 or 2 points that you think, oh, okay, that might look at that, and go away and do your own research and look at the idea of mind and restlessness or calm, you know, for yourself. So lovely that we're all here, and great. I love listening to this speakers anyway for myself, but it's always important, I think, to go away with my own insights. You know, what does that thing mean for me? So not blind faith, but that I become a student of my own mind and my own experiences, because if it is restless, then of course, beautiful to listen to somebody, then that will soothe me, but it will be temporary. I will listen to someone and it will give me an insight, but I might not be able to hold on to that insight. So in a way, just being able to pull it in and deepen it and push it down into my heart, into my feelings, into my experience, is really important. And in anything that we listen to, this is, let's say I'll be going on for about the next 30 minutes. We can switch off and our attention goes, and which is absolutely right. So it's good to be a student in that sense. And, so do feel you can jot things down. There is nothing copyright. And it will embed that more for you as well. And I'm sure that's true. So what I've done, I've sort of made an acronym of this word calming. And so, as I said, this is my approach to making things more interesting for me. How can I break down a huge concept like making my restless mind restful or making my chaotic mind calm? And how can I pull out certain strands, maybe specific things that will help me? So that's what I've done today. So I've broken down the word calming and I've attached an idea or a concept to each letter, and I thought we'd investigate it in that way. So here we go. So C is for contentment. And I think that's a really big word these days because, I don't know how many people with or without our current corona situation would say they were content. And, anyway, that's something that you can all ask yourselves really. But something for me is about, that's why I would want a calm mind, is it not? I would want a calm mind so that I would feel content in myself. So what value is it to have a calm mind? Is it just about following a trend, because everyone's doing it? So the well-being roadshow has been going on in the sort of popular state, in popular culture now, maybe for about 10 years. But before that, there was always a depth about it that might have been called spirituality. And we've sort of cut out that word, I think, because for a lot of people it has connotations they don't want. No problem. So now well-being has become a really popular thing to do. And I know a lot of people that have tried all sorts of things to do with well-being, the massages and the silence retreats and the mindfulness and all of that, which is absolutely fantastic. So we know that contentment is what we want, and more people are signing up to find something that will help me be content. But I know for myself, it's not just about living well. It's not just about relaxing in the moment. It's not just about feeling at the end of the day that I've had a good day. It's also deeper than that. It's about feeling safe. It's about feeling authentic with me. So, of course, we can say, externally it's been a peaceful day today. So internally I feel calm and content. Or everyone else is okay in my family, so now I feel content. Or I've just been given a promotion, so I'm very content about that. But I know now for myself, sort of digging deeper and deeper, it is really about knowing myself well, because the job can change, everyone around me can change, the situation can change. But when I know myself, when I know what I like, what I don't like, that I'm not a follower, but someone who asks questions and is dynamic, that I seize life, I thrive on life, not just surviving. These are nice play on words. Am I just surviving, or am I actually thriving? Am I feeling empowered, and do I empower others? And again, it could be that in one day, in one situation, I feel I can go out and give some kind of insight and or maybe share something like this, for example, and I might feel myself empowered by doing that churning, and I would hope that some small part may or may not empower you. Anyway, that's fine. But coming back to this inner contentment, that I have used my time well, and I have connected with myself in every day in doing something which brings me back to me. So it doesn't really matter what the circumstances are outside, whether they're going well or not, whether you take an insight or not, whether I have helped anyone else be calm or not, that there's enough going on internally, I'm connected enough internally, that I myself feel content. And we'll sort of unpack that a little bit more as we go. So a calm mind, a restful mind, begins with a sense of contentment in myself and is not dependent on out there, although of course it feels like it is. And I suppose that's, you know, that's part of this whole spiritual journey or well-being journey, in that it is a journey. I begin and I move along a path, and I fall over, I pick myself up, I learn this, I go down this, and it's a dead end or a blind alley, I come back. So lots of things to learn when we are reconnecting with ourselves and our restful mind. Because in a sense, the implication is I don't want a restless mind. And we may want a restless mind, and we'll come to that as well, because we need to look at all angles. So C is for contentment, A is for attention. So most of the time we attend or we focus on what is going wrong. Much of the time we attend or give our attention to what is going wrong. Some of the time we give our attention to what is going wrong. I don't know how it is for you. You know, there's most of the time, much of the time, some of the time, none of the time, rarely. But I would say if humanity rarely gave their attention to what was going wrong, we probably wouldn't live in such a world that we do. So I'm going to put it on the table that most of the time we give our attention to what is going wrong. And what I've learned about energy in terms of how we use our thoughts and our language and what we do is actually nature shows us the same, is whatever we feed will grow. So I plant the seed of the tomato and I water it and I give it light and it will grow. I don't water, I don't give it light, it will not grow. And it's the same with our thoughts. You know, whatever I feed will grow. So my perception and my experience of working with different communities, I suppose, is that generally people do focus on what is going wrong when it's going wrong. And the idea that it's something like, if I keep my attention on something, it will help me fix it. You know, it's like I'm just going to keep an eye on it, and something, if I constantly think about it, maybe some solution will come or some insight will come. But thinking in a way that is negative or disempowering or worrying or fearful actually creates more thoughts that are negative or worrying or disempowering or fearful. So whatever we feed will grow. You know, whatever I put in my mind will get more power. So the key to changing that dynamic, changing that energy dynamic in a sense, is breaking that cycle, even if it's just for a minute, even if it's just for a few seconds. And in a short break, you know, it's enough to step back and realize that this restless mind, if you like, will not be calmed if I am passive about it. So I think for most of us, it's a challenge to pay attention to that, to anything really. But if I don't actively change my direction of thought, I will not actively get a calm mind. And it is interesting to, again, question to the self. You could write the word down, passive and active. How active am I in terms of what I think and how I think? And am I quite passive in terms of a thought comes in from the external world and I am just influenced by it? Somebody says something and I'm influenced by it. I get a piece of information and I'm influenced by it. And then my thoughts change and my feelings change. Or how sort of a little distance am I emotionally from what's coming into me or what's coming up from me, in that I take a little space, that before I act on it, before I actually allow myself to experience something of that. And I can't remember whether I was sharing with Rome. I was here a few weeks ago, right, Radha? And anyway, I often use this example, so apologies if you've already heard it and you were on that call. And it's something like, in some of my own research in terms of as a meditator, but also as working with children, is the idea that, for example, watching TV. So this is in the light of attention, what we pay attention to. We think we are focused. I can spend 3 hours watching Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter and be completely engaged and feel like that's my attention, because I find them quite, empowering movies. But actually, I am acutely aware as I am watching them that if I do not look for the bits that I love, and I don't keep an eye on the emotions, so every film, every TV program is designed to entertain me and to spike my emotions, so that at the end of it, I will feel entertained, and I will feel I've got value for money, and again, I don't say this with any judgment. It's just myself as a reflective practitioner of the world. So if I watch something like that, I am going to have an emotional reaction because it's creating thoughts in me. And if I'm not keeping an eye on those thoughts, it's going to create emotions in me that I am not really aware of or conscious of, or fairly passive about. So if these are beautiful, uplifting films, then fantastic. If they are dark, sinister, violent films, then, well, ... Same effect is going to happen. Same influence in that sense. And I remember, again, as I say, I was looking at this anyway for my own meditation discoveries, but also from a child's perspective, because I've been teaching for about almost 30 years, and I have seen the attention span get shorter and shorter and shorter. And sure enough, in films and media, and I've had a lot of people that have, I've shared some of these thoughts with, and they work in the media industry, and they sort of nod, is that the scenes that we watch on TV change quicker and quicker and quicker, year after year after year. So for example, 25 years ago, if you go back to a channel where you can watch something that is quite old, you might see it feels a really, really, really slow. It's a really slow pace. So you think, oh, well, gosh, this is a little bit boring now. But it's something like the scene change was every 5 seconds. So we'll count that out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then scene change. Focus on man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Camera switches. Focus on woman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Focus on car chase. 1. Can you get what I mean? And now it's something like 2 to 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Change. 1, 2, 3. Change. 1, 2, 3. Change. 1. Point being, I am now watching those things all the time. So my brain is now being taught to expect new thoughts and new feelings that go with that every 2 to 3 seconds. And if I don't come out of a film at the end of that feeling entertained, I will not feel its value for money. I wanted something punchy and exciting, and that's not what I got. So bit by bit, as we live in the world that is getting faster and faster on every single level, apart from the last 9 weeks. Although if you're working in the hospital situation, I think probably it feels like it's speeded up even more than normal. But you know, we are living in a world where things are getting faster and faster, and we are sort of addicted to that. You know, we get chemically addicted to more detail, more complication, more tension, more fear, keeps me busy, keeps me distracted. So we are, this is sort of quite insidious, you know. And I wonder that maybe lockdown has either gone one of many ways, but I guess for people like yourself on the call, there's a sense that actually I have spent the time maybe slowing everything down, and I've deliberately not watched some of these things that keep me all alert and restless. But for many others, that's possibly all they've been watching, just a media diet of fast, restless. And again, no problem. Part of being a reflective practitioner of life that wants a restful mind instead of a restless mind is that I keep an eye on this. I keep an eye on where my attention is going. Am I become addicted to wanting to be distracted? Am I, you know, getting bored really easily? Can I just be internally with myself quietly? And you know, this is a question for all of us, really. And I've seen that, you know, when we are quiet and restful, we equate that with feeling peaceful, quite rightly. And so I do feel safe. But that can also tip, you know, if it's something I'm not used to, and I feel peaceful, but then actually, you know, am I looking for distractions? You know, how does that work? Am I okay with that? Do I feel bored about that, having been addicted to this restlessness? You know, am I resisting turning my attention inside? Am I resisting slowing my attention down? So this is also a good question. Am I embracing that, or am I resisting it? And I suppose that brings us to our next letter, which is L, for letting go. So deliberately letting go. Am I letting go of this needing to move all the time? And at this point, I'm going to pause because my neighbour is just mowing the lawn. Can you hear that? Oh, that's okay then. Well, I can definitely hear it. And I was thinking, oh, there we go, another little distraction. But anyway.
Sarah,
Okay, so L is...
Sarah, sorry, just whilst you're pausing, there are a couple of questions. Will you take them at the end, or how would you want to do that?
The end, if that's okay, that would be great. Fine. And I will stop with enough time if that's okay for everyone.
Great.
Yeah, super, thank you. I suppose letting go is about, well, I mean, it's easy to say, it's easy to think about this thing of letting go. But again, anyway, I did a master's research, a master's degree in psychology several years ago. I wanted to pull together my own learning in terms of what's going on in my head. I wanted to look at where psychology was in the field of meditation, because that's the practice I love. And also whether it had nudged its way into spirituality or anything sacred. And I ended up sort of doing this thesis on silence, which was very exciting. But in that journey, I learned a lot, of course. You know, it's all about the learning, right? So what also psychology has found, not just my own experience in terms of talking to people about the depths of the soul, which is we're going to move into soon, is this idea that, you know, many of us, most of us, many of us, some of us, me, how often, live in the past. So research shows that most of us, actually, our thoughts are in past events, and we hold on to the emotion of that. So the event has gone, but the emotion has locked itself into my memory banks, and it's locked itself into my into my muscle memory. It's locked itself, neurologically speaking, into, you know, if we have a traumatic event, or we have an ongoing, even if it's an ongoing low level stress event, then neurologically I'm firing and wiring neurons, and so now I've got neurological hardwired tissue, like a scar tissue, I suppose, throughout my body, which, again, different ways of describing it, is a little bit like plaque, on your teeth. It is really hard to get rid of, and it becomes hard, and gets in the way of all sorts of things. So the event itself is finished, but there'll be some residue. Maybe we still see those people that we made a mistake with, or we still see people in those stressful situations. But again, as someone who wants to thrive with a restful mind, as opposed to survive with a restless mind, I'm always looking at, is there an opportunity that I can let go and move on? So am I still feeding this memory? Am I still feeding what I don't want? Because if I'm feeding it, it's still going to be growing in me, in terms of spinning those thoughts. Should have done, could have done, would have done, what if I had have done? I'm still trying to fix it, even though it's finished. And that will have an impact physiologically on me and emotionally on me. So this spiritual concept, I'm going to call it spirituality, actually, because it's a really powerful, comes from a very powerful, deep sense of self and wanting to thrive, So in order to let go, it's not about stepping back and feeling cold. It's not about being detached. It's not about the sort of in counseling, for example, where there's a detachment emotionally, which is a very healthy, a very loving detachment emotionally. I'm just giving myself space. This is very nurturing. And then it tips into not nurturing, which would be disassociation, which means I've checked out mentally, I've checked out emotionally, I've disengaged, and there's some suppression or repression going on here. It's not that. It's this very clear understanding that if I don't give myself some time and space to just breathe this out and have a look at this, then I'm going to carry this with me for the rest of my life, and it will continue to grow my restless mind. And so, again, it's not that I become aloof and pious, look at me letting that go. It's about, paradoxically, being more caring, actually. And again, in spirituality, we always have this partnership. When you decide to engage with the process of letting go and moving forward, which involves this sort of stepping back a little bit, always there's a partnership, always, and it's detached and loving. So we become detached and loving. And I suppose, as I say, that maybe one example I can give you is with my own mum, who died possibly about 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that. I should know, right? But we've let it go and we've moved on. And with a lot of love. And I remember her telling me, well, I've got two sisters, and I remember her saying to me, I'm a bit worried about such and such and such and such, but I'm not worried about you, Sarah. I know you'll be fine. Because she understood that in this inner work, it was about having a restful mind, and that even when surrounded by worst case scenarios, that I would be fine, that I would care, and there would be tears, but I would, we talk about the spiritual athlete, if you like. I'm still going to get out of breath. I'm still going to fall over. I'm still going to kick the hurdles over, metaphorically speaking, as I run through life, but I'm going to recover more quickly. So my restful mind will come back more quickly because I got tools to deal with it, But actually, what the biggest insight about that was that when I realized that when I was freeing myself of well, restlessness, pain, sorrow, attachment, anger, grief. When I free myself in that way of all those dynamics that create the restless mind, then I free other people. This was the most fantastic insight. I had freed her from worrying about me. So as she was, she had other things to think about, right? But because of my own approach to life, which we talked about and she had seen, she was free from worrying about me. And I love that. Yes, soul, no problem. Fly, be gone, be free, with a lot of love. And this is huge, isn't it? When I find my own restful mind, I help others find theirs. And even if they can't find their restful mind about this one and this one and that, they can be restful about me. I can take away that dynamic. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine, and genuinely fine, not just no. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Not that one. So that third L for letting go. I better get a little bit quicker. We're not going to get through our alphabet. So yeah, and letting go, maybe another dynamic of that is that I might not, it is a sort of an element of accepting, and most people say to me, oh, I don't like this accepting thing, because I think we think it means I agree with it, and it doesn't. To accept something means I might not agree with it, I might not like it, but it's happening as it's happening. So I can either battle with it and use all my energy and keep that restless mind going, or I can step back and it is as it is, So can I question? Can I be okay with change? And if not, do I want to be? So what can I do about that? And can I be with things I cannot control? Can I be okay with things I cannot control? And again, you can, do your own research. When we finish today, you can put some nice music on, make yourself a cup of tea, and sit with your own journal and just, what comes out. When asking a question is a really good way of unpacking what's really going on in there, and finding myself, really. Yeah. So, this is an hour, less than an hour, really. So we are just tickling this concept, and I invite you, as I say, to go away and unpack it further. So in the word that is calming, we've got M, and for that I've really been thinking about motivation. So, what is it to have a calm mind? So am I addicted to the adrenaline rush and the drama that life brings me? And so am I actually motivated to have a calm mind, a restful mind? Because again, my own research, reading around what the world and people who've walked this path before me tell me about this, plus my own experience, I have come to see that I form an identity around the busy. Oh yes, yes, and I'm quite busy, but no problem, I've got it, I manage, I'm quite efficient, oh, I'm very informed, I perceive myself in a certain way, and so therefore, am I motivated to have a calm mind? Because that will mean stopping. It will mean, actually maybe letting go of something and slowing down a little bit. And some people have said to me, I'm not sure, I've tried this meditation, I've had a couple of sessions and I'm not, it's a bit boring, I can't do it. And I suppose what I would say is that we do need to stick with it for a while. But one of the questions that will come up is, am I motivated to have a restful mind? So, I might go to the beach or the countryside and I might be with others. I might go for dinner. I might have really different experiences that when I come back, I feel calmer and I feel rested. But if I can't do that, such as lockdown, for example, do I have to do something physically or be with somebody else to get this restful mind? And can I let go of the restless mind? Because when we step back a bit, or we start to meditate, all of this is a term called self-regulation. So when we're reading, for example, or when we're walking, when we're doing something that we really enjoy and is quite relaxing, we are self-regulating. And it's a term that we use maybe for autism, where children or adults with that particular condition would use silence or colouring in or all of this. We can see certainly in the UK the mindfulness colouring in. Have you seen all these books that have come out? Because what happens is all I'm doing is colouring in, and as I'm colouring, the mind is then free. It's released from all the tension and the tugging and the solving, and so the subconscious mind moves up, is a very powerful tool, and it's got the solution. So as I'm colouring in and I take my attention away from what I'm trying to control, I take my attention away, it's the eureka moment, right? It's the Archimedes in the bath. It's when I go and do something else, what I really need is allowed to come up and show itself. But because normally I am buzzing around and doing everything, and I think if I keep an eye on it, and I keep you in your place, and I keep those chest bits moving, then I'll be stable, I'll be peaceful, and you'll be peaceful, and then we'll all be peaceful, and everything will go to plan. I mean, that's a lot of energy. I speak from experience, work in progress. So being able to let go of that and allow this to go, but it involves a certain amount of a shift in my identity, of slowing down, of stepping back. And, I'm always asking myself, is this useful? Why would I do that? So from a real place of peace, not from suppressing, a restful mind from a real place of peace, not just from a suppression, if you like. So very quickly, I is for introversion. So these introversion often is depicted as a shyness or maybe a little bit passive. I don't know. I think historically it has had a bit of a reputation problem. But from a meditator's perspective, introversion is a huge tool to just go inside, to think about my thoughts, to observe myself, to plant some new seeds, and I need introversion. I need quiet. It's not about being submissive. It's about being an active and engaged participant in life, but quietly and from an inner place, as opposed to this external control. You just all stay there and then I'll be fine. What's going on internally. And there's some very famous extroverts, who sat in their garage and were in coffee shops and created beautiful things. I think, is it Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, Einstein? Maybe J.K. Rowling comes to mind, where you have a huge power of the mind. But if I'm always thinking about everything out there, I mean, what a waste, really, for myself and for others. So meditation, of course, is the ideal tool. It's the ideal dynamic that happens when I reconnect with myself. And, there's a time for quiet, there's a time for noise, there's a time for being with myself, there's a time for being with others. I can pace this time I have internally, It's not that we have to walk around like it all the time. And actually, when we connect with ourselves and we are inside ourselves, we do rejuvenate. So again, physiologically, neurologically, emotionally, we regenerate and rejuvenate. So really important. So the N is for nurturing. So nurturing the self, and actually nurturing the soul. So when we meditate, we nurture the soul. So I am a soul, a thinking, feeling being of life. So yes, of course, I have a body, but what I think affects my body. My feelings affect me physiologically, you know. So Raj Yoga, for example, is a meditation approach. It unpacks the faculties of the soul. So we've got, maybe some of you have taken that course, or maybe a positive thinking course that Rome might offer, Rome Brahma Kumaris. We look at the mind, we look at personality traits, and we look at this sort of a muscle called the intellect. And this part is my willpower, and it's the part of me which has my conscience. So there's this sort of triangle energy dynamic internally when we activate our soul consciousness. And so this is very, very powerful. But if I never activate that, it just becomes this passive loop. It's a loop system. And I think about negativity, and I feel negative, and around I go. So meditation breaks that cycle and allows me to steer a thought, and we'll do this at the end actually, to steer a thought that, you know, changes the dynamic of the cycle. And even if that's just a minute or a very short time, it can give me a little bit of breathing space and go from restless to restful. And then the last one is G. And for me, G is for God. I never really did the God thing. It took quite a lot of years with Raj Yoga to really understand what that meant for me. So I'm sharing it today. I don't know whether it floats your boat or not. But for me, God is a spiritual parent, actually. And I love this concept of God as light, just light. And as benevolent, not just light, but benevolent light. So when I connect to this power source, this strength in my meditation, then it allows me to have this consistency, because God is constant. So I take on that constant. God is benevolent, so I draw on that benevolence. So for me, in terms of, you know, if we go right back to the A that we looked at earlier, A for attention, you know, am I directing my attention to something benevolent and powerful and uplifting and beautiful, or am I still directing my attention to something else that is not that? Am I strengthening my vibration? Am I raising my vibrational rate, raising the frequency of my thoughts, or am I not? And so throughout my day, you know, this is always a choice, really. So let me use my time, in a sense, to connect with God. So God also is about eternity. It's about unlimited. It's this real, you know, big thinking, as opposed to just the tiny thinking that we can find ourselves embroiled in the restless mind. So God's mind is restful. And let me connect to that. And I think we'll have some questions and answers, and then we will do a meditation and connect to that.
May I suggest, Sarah, that we
Yeah.
do a meditation first,
Oh,
and
yes.
then because it might take a few more minutes to answer the questions, and so
Okay.
those who are able to stay on can stay on. Then is that
Okay.
okay with everyone? Is that
Okay.
okay with you,
Just
Sarah?
looking at the questions now. Yes, whatever's going to work. That'd be lovely.
So just 5-6 minute meditation, and then whatever questions can come in.
Great.
Okay.
So I think you're probably all familiar with meditation. So I'm just going to sit in my chair. You can close your eyes if you like. You can rest your eyes on something, probably not me, since I'll be moving around with my mouth. And I'm just going to breathe, because one of the things we've looked at today is about letting go. So I just breathe in and breathing out. And deep breath in and breathing out. And I just check that my body is relaxed and there's no tension. And in particular, the places of tension are the stomach. So check your stomach and let it be soft. And hands, are they soft? And neck and shoulders, soft. And jaw, soft. And now I begin to talk to myself, because actively I choose the thoughts I want to have. And I want to use language that is beautiful and uplifting. And so I say to myself, I am a thinking, feeling being. I am a thinking, feeling being of light and life. I am soul, a conscious, thinking, feeling being. And inside me is huge potential for calm, for wisdom, for letting go, for nurture. And even just in these few minutes, I begin to feel a difference. When I speak to myself in this way, with this language, I am connecting to myself, not anyone else, not anywhere else, but me. I take my attention to the center of my forehead, and I visualize there a tiny little star, a diamond, a little light. And I begin to make it pulse with light. This is me, the soul, radiating light. Because I am alive. And when I thrive, I expand myself. When I thrive, I share of myself. In front of me, I see another light, the light of God. This light is shining rays of light, waves of light. And I move myself into the path of God's light. This light is sharing waves of benevolence, waves of power, waves of peace. And in my stillness and introversion, I can really give attention to this. I can visualize, imagine, use all my creative faculties to engage with who I am. And this power source pulses of light, waves of light coming out of me and out of God. If someone were measuring my brain waves, if someone were measuring my light, they would see only power, active participant in creating a restful mind. There would be order and coherence, togetherness, unity, calm. And how I think affects my feelings. And as I breathe restfully, I begin to see that relationship. And I see that in a few seconds I will be stopping this engagement, this activity, and moving to my next activity. But let me see that actually I can talk myself into this space whenever I like. If I want to, whenever I like. Nice feeling. And so if I've closed my eyes, I open them. And I look around my room, staying with this feeling of calm and light. Have a little stretch if you like. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for your presence. We've come to the end of our time, but I would like to invite those of you who can stay on, maybe for 10 minutes, and we'll take the opportunity to listen to some of the answers, Sarah. Maybe if you could, are you able to see the questions in the chat?
I can see in the chat, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Starting with a couple of questions from Corinne and also one from Taku about little children.
Okay. I'm also looking at some right at the beginning of the session. So
exactly, yes.
yeah, so maybe I start with those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were 3 questions.
Okay. So and I can see already, you know, even within, had I stayed within the hour, you need another hour to answer most of them. So you can ask Radha personally how she might tackle them. Hello to Marco, who studied English in Newcastle. He might have gone now. So Connie's question, connecting with external beings as well as connecting internally, caring for others makes people more content. Yes. There's always a balance in terms of how much I give to someone else and how much I give to myself. This research in terms of the world and my own is quite often we don't hit the right balance. You know, we like to care for others and it is good for us, I agree. But if I take my happiness from being able to care from others, there will be a tipping point. And when I can't, let's say I get older and I can no longer care for others, let's say something changes in my life and I can no longer be there for others in the way I used to. So we get a little bit addicted to that identity and what happens when that stops. So I agree, fantastic to care for others and great if it helps in my own well-being. But let me be mindful of, do I nurture myself as much as I nurture others? Is there a resistance to that? Do I think I am not worthy? Is it too boring to sit down and build up my inner power? Yes, absolutely. Let me go swimming. Let me read. Let me nurture my body. Let me holistically nurture my own well-being and to care for myself. Definitely. You know, I suppose to that I would just say, yeah, how can we balance ourselves? Well, if I start getting resentment, if I start feeling tired, if I start feeling overrun, these are all keys that I am out of balance, really. If I still have a restless mind, definitely I'm out of balance. And only we really know individually, only we really know. So Marco's answered that as well. So there we go. So Taco and is it Wadzi have answered each other. So that's great with young kids. Connie again, do you think be able to let go? We have to resolve some of our past. Raj Yoga has taught me that whatever I feed will grow. So if I go back into the past, I am reliving those thoughts, which means I'm reigniting those feelings and those emotions. And unless I am powerful in terms of being able to steer my thoughts, then if it all comes up again, it will all run away again, and I will be less powerful. So it's if I decide, and again, only we really know, if you decide to go into something from the past to heal it or neutralize it, then I would advocate having a very long, deep meditation session first, and approach the problem, the challenge, from a very powerful perspective. And I think probably what happens with most people is that we try and solve everything. We look at it. We try and fix it from a weak perspective. I'm still really emotional, and I'm having to keep an eye on all of that as I solve or approach you or try and say sorry or get a sorry from you. I'm hanging on to everything inside of me. So, you know, no problem. Again, not a judgment, but I have learned for myself, I raise my vibrational rate. I meditate, I understand I am a soul, a thinking, feeling being of light with huge potential. I power up with my parent. And again, I approach it from this angle. So the low vibration, hurt, pain, anger, so, you know, it's all down here. And it will be real for me if I have felt it. So I don't negate that. But if I'm gonna soothe it, clear it, understand it, let it go, I need to come at it from this place, you know, from this place. So I think that was Einstein, wasn't it? You can't solve anything from the same energy as it was created. I can only solve it from a higher energy. So, yeah. So lovely. So Radha's got that, a lovely thing there. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. I think that's, oh, hang on. Okay. Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely. Oh, we're lovely to you too.
I think that's all the questions, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Well, apologies for going over time. Yeah.
A few minutes, it's perfectly fine. Yeah. So most people are still online. So thank you once again, Sarah, and I hope we can have you back again soon, maybe.
Wow, how lovely.
It's been very, very beautiful and very practical. And I think something that we can all use and unpack, as you said.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for having me. And may your day and week and months to come be very restful. And lots of love and good wishes. Yeah. Thank you.